On Wednesday, November 28th, IFC Films held a special one-night screening of the director's cut of The House That Jack Built at select venues across America. It's the exact same print that made people at Cannes vomit, protest, and cheer their hearts out once it was all over, and considering how miffed the MPAA is over its content, it might be a long time before we'll ever get our hands on this 1 or 2-minute cut of the movie again. In fact, there's already rumors circulating now that the severely edited R-rated version of The House That Jack Built, which is scheduled for theatrical and VOD release on December 14th, might actually get yanked from circulation. So obviously kind of a big deal. If you didn't see it last week, then you may never see this one again. Strong possibility. In fact, this very well could be the modern day equivalent of the infamous screening of the original 8-hour cut of Erich von Stroheim's Greed in 1924, which, as we all know by now, was the only opportunity the general public ever had to see that whole movie in its fullest, most undiluted incarnation, which unfortunately could be the case with The House that Jack Built as well, but we'll get more on that in a minute. So I'm just going to get this out of the way now. I went to go see the movie last week, and I think the director's cut version of the film anyway isn't just the best horror movie of 2018, it is easily the best movie of 2018, period. In fact, I'll go a step further and say that it's actually the best movie Lars von Trier has ever made, and he's made some really good ones, and it's quite possibly the single best serial killer movie since The Silence of the Lambs. It's brutal and disgusting and insightful and poignant and gripping and unnerving and hilarious and thought-provoking, about 20 or 30 other seeming antonyms that shouldn't be possible in one movie, but somehow, some way, Von Trier manages to pull it off. In my screening, when the end credits started rolling, the audience, which, by the way, has made up some of Atlanta's most vocal and hardcore and hardened cinephiles, had no idea how to react. Some laughed, some looked like they wanted to puke, and others looked like they just survived a near-fatal car crash. As director Von Trier himself said in a special message for the movie, Jack is a film meant to be digested over the course of several days, and I don't think anyone in the Plaza Theater on Ponce has stopped mulling the core essence of the movie since, and that includes this humble reviewer as well. The thing that strikes me most about the movie is how you can read it through so many different lenses. If you want to see the movie as nothing more than a slightly more highbrow slasher/splatterfest for the art house hipster set, you can certainly do so. But if you want to see it as a deeper, more philosophical, psychological drama, kind of like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, you can certainly do that too. Hell, if you want to view it as a cold black parody of horror movies and psycho murder thrillers in the vein of Man Bites Dog, you can take that route as well. A movie as deep and nuanced and layered and multifaceted as Jack necessitates multiple viewings, and the mindset of the viewer can completely alter one's perception and reception of the work. Sometimes Jack feels like it's a straight-up true crime saga that could almost be labeled an XP dramatization of the Ted Bundy or Edmund Kemper stories, and at other times, it almost feels like an absurd pastiche of the serial killer genre. Indeed, Jack may be as close as we'll ever get to seeing a live-action adaptation of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. But it's also a lyrical and poetic film with a narrative structure pretty much on loan from the Aristotelian dialectic. And the epilogue of the movie is literally a readaptation of one of the greatest works of literature in the Western canon, but I don't want to spoil that for you. Then again, as soon as you learn Bruno Gantz's character is named Virgil, so pardon me, I'm kind of getting my tongue tangled up here. Well, it's not really that big of a deal, or big of a plot twist when you find the guy's named Virgil, right? I mean, even if you play Devil May Cry, you can figure this one out. So anyway, the film relies upon the same framework that Von Trier utilized for his last film, Nymphomaniac, which I thought was fantastic. You got the main character confessing their guilt and sins to an elder figure who spends the duration of the film analyzing and deconstructing their actions. Jack is basically subdivided into 6 major chapters, with bridges in between in which Matt Dillon's eponymous character and Gantz wax philosophical on war crimes, violence in the arts, and the noble right, among many other interesting asides. The chapters tend to focus on specific murders committed by Jack, with an occasional flashback and flash forward sprinkled into the diegetic salad just for the sake of being artsy-fartsy. Never one to shy away from the meta, at certain points in the film, Von Trier manages to juxtapose his own previous cinematic work over stock footage from concentration camps and the Idi Amin regime. Feel free to make your own deductions on the development he's trying to get across there. Now, I don't want to give away too many details on the murder scenes, but by now you've probably heard the gist of it through the interwebs. In the opening sequence, Uma Thurman hops in a ride with Jack, with, ironically enough, a tire jack. Without spoiling it for you, I can assure you that tire jack is used for several things, but changing a tire is not one of them. The second chapter deals with Jack's attempts to infiltrate a widow's home and how his obsessive-compulsive disorder tendencies almost get him found out by the police. Chapter 3 reminds us why it's never a good idea to take your children on a hunting trip with a serial murderer, and Part 4 reminds us why it's never a good idea to A. Date a serial murderer, and B. Let said serial murderer draw suspiciously detailed surgery markings on your body as a form of unorthodox foreplay. And the final chapter focuses on Jack's homicidal magnum opus, and attempt to kill 6 people with a single bullet that apparently is a lot harder in practice than in theory. And of course, there's that final scene I was referencing earlier. Needless to say, it takes on a tone and atmosphere totally unlike the rest of the movie, and despite the drastic stylistic shift, it remains every bit as harrowing and captivating as the preceding chapters. Now, much has been said about the violence in the movie, with some accusing the film of promoting misogyny. Interestingly, this is something Von Trier himself sort of lampshades in the scene where Virgil asks Jack why he tends to prey on female victims, and why all of his female victims in this movie seem to act so stupid. Now, anyone who's ever taken a criminal justice course before can tell you exactly what the director is referencing there. Gavin de Becker's seminal work, The Gift of Fear, which actually encourages readers, particularly the female ones, to be cognizant of their own surroundings and stay wary of strange men, which is pretty much all of them. Clearly, Jack isn't a film that glamorizes violence against women, depicting such as horrific, brutish, and decisively non-sexual. If anything, one might be more inclined to call Jack a quasi-misandrist work, with the main character practically living embodiment of everything the Me Too movement, whether founded or unfounded, fears about the unfairer sex. As for graphicness of the movie, I think Jack is hardly any more violent than most R-rated Hollywood horror movies. In fact, I'd surmise that the Halloween remake is an objectively gorier movie than Jack, but the difference is in how the latter makes the violence feel consequential. Jack is a movie that shows homicide as a visceral, unglamorous, sloppy, nonsensical transgression it is. When people get shot in this movie, their heads don't explode in a video game shower of blood and bone. Rather, they crawl around as wounded animals, slowly and pathetically leaking their life force across the screen. Whereas other horror movies are content showing the act of murder and then cutting away to the melodrama, Jack is a movie that lingers on the product of murder. This is a movie that forces the viewer to stare at the lifeless corpses of children, to watch people gasp and gurgle and strain for breath and cry and beg for their lives. The average Saw movie has more blood and guts than Jack, but what Jack does is make the violence we do see feel realer, more devastating, more painful, and more loathsome. Whether or not the on-screen mayhem presenting the director's cut of Jack merits an NC-17 ratings in the eye of the beholder, but this much is certain. The death and destruction of this movie is far, far more disturbing than just about any other movie to come out in 2018, and it's not even close. Now, in a just world, Matt Dillon would probably be a lock for a Best Actor Oscar. His Mr. Sophistication is the most fascinating movie on the silver screen since Heath Ledger's Joker, a character who is simultaneously revolting and appealing, yet alternating between unapproachably crude and oddly endearing. Dillon certainly did his homework here, with dead-on mannerisms on loan from real-world serial killers like Richard Kalinsky and Jeffrey Dahmer. Dillon does a much better job portraying a charismatic, emotionless psycho than Christian Bale ever did, and it's apparent that either he or Von Trier studied clinical sociopathy quite a bit in the production. Martha South's sociopath next door seems to be a clear influence on the main character's persona, as is perhaps the work of author Pete Early, most probably his 2012 book, The Serial Killer Whisperer. Now, even for hardcore horror enthusiasts, Jack might be too taxing an experience. If not for the up-close breast slicing and elementary schooler murder, then for the film's intentionally, albeit effective, disjointed structure. Those with shorter attention spans and a complete disdain for anything philosophical or academic need not apply here. Odds are you'll be tuning out long before Jack starts crushing people's windpipes and using their corpses as performance art props. But if you're a fan of esoteric cinema, and you have at least a passing knowledge of the Divine Comedy, and you can appreciate movies that force you to interpret their core meanings on your own, Jack, I assure you, isn't just a must-see, it's a you should have been there on opening night, and shame on you if you weren't. Needless to say, The House that Jack Built is an incredible movie. The director's cut was outstanding. If you get an opportunity to see it, even in edited form, it's probably what's going your way to see, because this one is far and away the best film of 2018. And not even close. I've seen some good movies. This one is absolute cream of the crop. And you need to go check it out if this opportunity is afforded to you. You probably won't regret it. Hopefully.